your calling isn't somewhere new? It's right where you are. Today's guest, Shari Hooper, grew up in finance, built a career beside her trailblazing mom, and then faced the moment many of us know too well. Do I pivot or persevere? In a field that can feel saturated, think advisors on every corner, Shari figured out what to do to build a successful career for over 35 years. My guest today, Shari Hooper, has 35 years of experience in financial industry and has been a member of the Summit Wealth Partners team since spring of 2020. During her time in the financial industry, she's received many credentials: a registered paraplanner through the College of Financial Planning, Life, Health, Variable Insurance licenses, Series 7, 63, 65. She's a certified senior advisor designation, and she's currently completing her behavioral finance designation. Shari is a wealth of information in the art of financial planning, but also in persevering in a saturated market. I know you will be inspired by her story, and I invite you to listen in. Welcome to Main Street Success Stories. I'm your host, Jennifer Kok, entrepreneur, business coach, and founder of Next Wave Business Coaching. My first business I opened 2 days before giving birth to my second daughter, but then I grew it for 20 years. I grew it from a local bakery into a national brand and eventually sold it for a profit. I know firsthand how tough the odds can be. Only 1 out of 2 small businesses make it to year 5. That's why I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs change those statistics through coaching, mentoring, and this podcast, where I share real stories of others, their success, their struggle, their mindset shifts, their fears, and lots of wins along the way. Because none of us are alone in this journey of entrepreneurship, and I want to make sure that you have the support you need. My goal is simple: to inspire you, motivate you, and show you there's a path to building a profitable business. So let's dive into the next episode of Main Street Success Stories. Shari Hooper, I am so excited to have you on Main Street Success Stories today.
I am honored to be here. Thanks, Jen.
You know, Shari, you and I have known each other a while. We're both in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. And we met years ago through a referral, and you have been a financial advisor. Is that what your official title is? For over 35 years. You have a wealth of experience.
Yes, I have. Now, I would say I can't claim all the way back 30 to 35 years as an advisor because I started right from the ground level and I was the receptionist and just kind of worked my way up through junior partner and a lot of things in between, but has been a long career in finance.
And I use the word wealth as a pun on words because not only are you a wealth of information, you also help people with their wealth. How did you get into this then? If you started out, was it just a part-time job you applied for and had no idea what they were doing? Or how did you get into this?
Well, I got into this business because my mom was a financial advisor. And
Oh, okay.
she had started as a tax advisor first. And then way back when we could give $2,000 as an IRA contribution. And all of her clients, she kept referring them out to make these $2,000 contributions. And finally, the gentleman said, you can do this. You can do this yourself. And so when she started, I was in high school. And once she was kind of on her way, I started working at that firm with her and a dozen men. That's really what it was, but I helped the receptionist wanted to get home to her kids off the bus, so I worked 3 to 5 every day until summer, and then I took over for the receptionist during the summertime, so
I bet your mom has a lot of stories because it probably was a tough field for her back then in a very male-dominated world.
yeah, there were a lot of stories, and really, I mean, I can tell those stories being right beside her the whole time. I mean, really, her whole career was my career because she started, like I said, in high school, and there I was, and so, she rose to success. Back then, she was considered the number one advisor nationwide for Putnam Mutual Funds at the time. And then she was in the top 10 and on the leaderboard, so to speak, for her broker dealer at the time. And she remained in those areas for years while she was in business. So I had the privilege of joining her on different conferences and seeing her get these awards. And it was a different time. And she was very unique just being a woman. I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes and they were there. I mean, just the things that you can think of way back
Oh,
when. So,
sure.
mhm.
Yeah. So watching her, scale and have all that success, is that what inspired you to get into financial advising? Or were you just from day one kind of excited by it and curious with it?
Well, so interestingly enough, because I'd worked summers in college, there were two other. So even with there were so many men in the firm itself, my mom and 2 others were really probably the younger of all of the group, and so those 3 kind of did more things for their clients than some of the older gentlemen did in terms of technology and wanting, a little bit more push for success, and they were in growing stages where these other guys were kind of a little bit more landing their planes, so to speak, and so, um, I just remembered that these gentlemen really wanted me to be able to be full time with them. And so my mom had said, "Look, this can't come from me. I don't want to sway her decision in any way." But they had called me, I think it was in the winters, March or April of 92, called me when I was at Western Michigan and said, "What do you think about doing this full time? Not just the summer, but staying on and working for the 3 of them and their clientele and really growing beside them, and that's where my education actually started in the financial field, but before then, I was planning to be in international business. I'd been taking French classes all through high school, and I just had this dream of I was gonna have these cool clothes and jet setting on an airplane, and I didn't even know what it meant to be in international business. I just didn't wanna be attached, and I just wanted to I felt a lot more independent in my mind than I actually became, I guess, because I accepted, and then I have been there ever since. I mean, pretty much doing the same thing, but full time, I just worked my way up at that point. So I did a lot of crazy things. I didn't even enjoy maternity. I mean, this job it can be very demanding, but there's just it's hard to find balance. And so you can because ultimately I grew into what became my own business or my mom's own business and a partner with her, but there's just so much to do all the time, or at least at the level that I like to give. I'll say,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, here's a fun fact. I started my college career in international business as well. I can remember sitting at the table. I'm a little bit older than you, and my dad was always such a visionary. He worked for Ford Motor Company and designed cars, and he was always ahead of his time. And I can remember sitting at the kitchen table with a book that was about 4 inches thick where you'd go through and pick your degree. You're 18 years
Mhm.
old and you're going to go pick the rest of your life. And he said to me, "You need to go into international business because the world's going to get smaller. It's going to be able to communicate with each other easier." That was before the World Wide Web and AOL and all that started.
Right?
And
You
so
know?
I said, "Okay, I'll do that." Cause like you, I'm going to fly. I'm going to travel. I always love to travel. Well, I could not get through Spanish. I walked into sophomore year of college, Spanish 201, walked out and went right to my advisor and said, "Help." And that's how I ended up in marketing,
That's awesome. Well, I couldn't get through French either. It was the dictation. I could not understand what they were saying back, and
which
I
is
was
kind
so
of
frustrated.
important in international business. So yeah, I guess neither one of us were meant to pursue that path. We're just supposed to travel instead.
We're just supposed to travel, but I had a great French car.
Okay, what is a French car? I'm so curious. What's
It
a
was
French car? Yeah, okay.
wasn't sexy. It was just I was dedicating my life to, like, this is what I was gonna do, but then I couldn't high school French was way easier.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, that's so funny. All right, so I really want to dive into you said, it took a lot of grit and a lot of times you're working on your vacations. You're going above and beyond, not only because you are excel at what you do and want to excel at what you do. But
Mhm.
I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that are building a business in what I would call a saturated market. And when I think of saturated market, the top 3 that come to mind are realtors, insurance, and financial planners. We walk into any networking event in town and you're always going to meet a handful of each one of those. So as you're starting out, how did you like push through that or did you not think of it that way? I'm wondering if it was, in today's world we think of it as saturated or back then maybe you didn't realize it was a saturated market.
Well, yeah, back then it didn't seem like it at all, and it was a little bit different. The field has opened up, I guess, so if I back up, we were working for a broker dealer, right? There were some broker dealers at the time. We were considered registered representatives. It was more of a commission-based business, or you might have heard the term stockbroker. So there was a handful of companies that I think people could probably name back then. So yes, fast forward, we have bigger names, we have smaller names. We have RIAs, which stands for Registered Investment Advisors. And the difference with an RIA versus working for a broker is going to be the fiduciary responsibility. And so it really opened up the market, I think, to see a lot of whether you say financial advisors, financial planner, wealth managers, they're all going to be very similar in the context of what they do, more of that root of what we all do. But I think that you're right. Even when I drive down the road and I can see all the signs, I think that there's more advisors than you realize because the registered investment advisors might name their business after themselves. It could be something like a Summit Wealth Partners as an example, and you wouldn't necessarily know what that meant. In that name, there's at least wealth. I see in plazas all the time from city to city, there's always this one company that seems to find their way. I can definitely agree with you in that the market very similar to those others that you had mentioned. There's a lot of us.
There is. So, and I don't want to ever deter anybody from starting a business because I believe there's business for everybody. I believe there's abundance. And whether you are just starting out in real estate or you're 4 years in or financial planning or whatever it is, even business coaching is completely saturated. But we all bring our own unique proposition, our unique selling proposition to the party. We all bring our own experiences and differences. So that's why I never fear that, but it can make it feel like a bit of a grind. And so, you say you really built your business because you would be willing to go the extra. You were the person that was going the extra when nobody was looking. So, what do you mean by that?
Well, so if I were to think back even when my mom retired in 2014, there was a little bit of friction back then, because it felt like there was two chiefs in the kitchen, so to speak. I mean, not that those years weren't really great with my mom, but you get to a point where she's, again, I'm going to use the phrase landing and I'm ready to take off and I'm ready to do things differently and newer. And so we were kind of butting heads a little bit. And to the point where when she did come to me and say, I'm retiring in such a time, here are your options. What do you want to do? Well, it really had discouraged me at that one point, like, oh my gosh, do I really even want to do this? Do I really want to take the reins and make this happen? Or should I explore different options? Is this even for me? I mean, felt beaten down even at the time. And it was a time that I used for prayer. I did explore different options. I even filled out the Chick-fil-A online, you know, form. Like, I'm like, "Chick-fil-A belongs in Grand Rapids."
My gosh, I bet you're kicking yourself for not doing that.
Well, I did. I made it through a couple rounds, but what they said was, "We're the ones that determine the market. Don't tell us where we should go." Well, I didn't, I was willing to move potentially. But anyway, another story. So I guess the point is I really felt like during that time, it was that discovery time that I really felt like God was telling me this was an area for me. This was what I was meant to do. And so, answering your question, yes, we can find our niche, so to speak. And I do think I have a niche. I'll come back to that service that you mentioned. But at the same time, I think God gives us talents. He gives us our own uniqueness, our own strengths. And whether that's personality or whether it's grit or, something unique about us, a trust factor. It takes a lot in the finance to be trustworthy. That has to be that certainly people have to like your personality. They have to like your style. I mean, I'm very open, I'm very relationship oriented. I'm very hands on. I don't really want to call it controlling, but I want to take the worry, the stress off my clients. I want to do as much as I can for you. I want to do the next level would be with you. Let's do it together. Let's do a Zoom call. Let's do a conference call. Let's, whatever it takes. And then if I can't do it or walk beside you, then I'm going to make sure that it gets done in the best way possible with gentle reminders. There are just certain things in that aspect. So going the extra mile, of course, means something different for everybody. But I think I spend just as much time on the service element of follow up, reminders, preparing, and doing the extra things. I have a great network of people that I use. And so if we're reaching out and having to do another meeting, I'm trying to organize it. But I make all my own appointments with clients even today. I do a lot of follow up today with those in terms of those appointments. They're hearing from me. They're getting me. I do a lot of events. I want to be in front of my clients. I want to have fun with my clients. I want to give them opportunity for fun. We laugh. We have conversations. I would say most of my clients are true friends. We hug. I know if you don't want to hug or you don't want a handshake or you don't want, I mean, that's just part of it, right? You're sitting across the table, but you're asking value systems. You're asking about their childhood a little bit of, what did money mean to you? How are you raised? Who's important to you today? Or, you start to learn their friendships, their family really well. And then you're invested, not they're invested in you physically, I guess, in a sense. I'm invested in them in their lives. They're truly important to me. I love knowing that next surgery. If I can show up at the hospital, I might. Can I send you something? Can I send you puzzles because you're down for a few days? Here's something to do. I'm just thinking about you. I'm having a new, I just want to celebrate with my clients in their lives. They are what matters to me. And yes, the investments are wonderful, but I think every day I get up and I get a chance to see these people, converse with these people, reach out to them. When I leave at the end of the day, my bucket's full every day. And I'd love to say my kids could do it. I'd love to say my husband can do it. They certainly take part in it, but being able to just serve these clients in the best way, that fills me up at the end of my day. And so that's what I tell God every day is that I never was meant for the mission field in Africa. I was like, just steer me clear. Don't make me do that calling. But if my clients is how I look at it, they're my mission every day to serve them well and share information. And most of the time it's finance, but not always. We get off on some crazy discussions, but that's just what kind of binds us all together.
Wow, what a beautiful story and testament to you are really living God's purpose. Like you said in 2014, you were tempted to go a whole different path, but you just paused and prayed and probably didn't jump to a decision.
No, not right away. It took a little minute, but I think God also calls us to take some actions, and so you can't just sit back and expect it to hit you in the face, and so I kept putting a foot forward and exploring the other options and just waited for doors to open and doors to close, and that's just the best way I can say it works for me is I have to do something, right? And so even though I explored Chick-fil-A, I explored some other crazy things. I also explored what it would look like to continue in the business. And because it was my mom and I, we served a lot of clients. We had a lot of different companies where we had, thankfully, we were really blessed where we worked with maybe over 100 different employees in a couple different companies. And so we would help manage their 401ks. And they talked a lot back then in business. And it was easy to get new referrals on a regular basis. We grew our business. And so it was great. But when my mom retired, we went from 2 to 1. And so I realized if I'm going to do this, I have to have some additional support beyond my team. I had a great team of admin, but I didn't have another me to figure out what that looked like. So I explored options of joining another firm and bringing my clients with me. I explored having a partner and what that might look like, but I just knew that I had to and wanted to bring more to my clients. And that meant maybe adding, at the time, it was adding some performance software so that I could give them some really great reports in terms of how they were doing in the markets, get some historicals going and kind of really look at what that might be. Maybe even giving them a portal. I really love having the opportunity for my clients to see everything in one place and be able to use these links, link everything up. But I store a lot of documents in there. I want clients to have access to them. Again, it just goes to if you're away from home, how have I provided for my clients that they can grab what they need when they need it? And I just took those steps, and really the opportunity was there for me to join another firm. And there was a couple of options. And when the firm that I had wanted at the time was open to working with me, I was like, okay, well, everything else is closed. Everything else, I don't, it did. It was really just like this one door opened. And so I went through that door and had some really good years for about, 4 or 5 years. I had some really good years with that firm. So,
Okay. Well, what I loved about what you said is a lot of times when we are faced with a challenge in our business or we feel like we've plateaued or we're feeling a little, I don't know where I want to go from here, a lot of times our first inclination is to always look for other options. Like you said, Chick-fil-A and all these other options. But I love how you said you also have to visualize you going down the path of what if I do continue in this business? Because I've had those moments too in an online consulting role After I sold my cookie and cupcake business, sometimes I'm like, okay, God, is this where you want me? Is this it? Because sometimes this feels really hard. It's a daily grind. You're showing up all the time, but where are your people? You can go through all of that and start to doubt yourself. And I really love the idea of what if I do continue down this path? What does that look like? What will it look like in 2 years for me and my family, 3 years, 4 years? And I question if we do that enough. I feel like a lot of times we live in what's in it for me and what's next. And, I always say we're all becoming a bunch of, self diagnosed ADHD people because of all the information we're bombarded with. So, we'll listen to a podcast, we'll listen to this and go, oh, I'm going to go do that instead. So it's really easy to pivot. So your way of really standing out in a saturated market is you obviously go above and beyond. You have made your clients your friends. I love these events that you do and you bring in fun. But how do you avoid getting burned out? Do you have some boundaries or how does that work for you?
Ooh, that's a tough one. When you were just mentioning kind of following this path and going into finance and staying in finance, I'd already given about 20 years at that point. And so it was a natural to see that through as well and at least include it as an option. And I got to do it. If I continued, I got to do it alone this time. Like I was the only chief in the kitchen. And so there was some real benefit to that as well. And so looking at fast forward now, gosh, it's already been 11 more years and my kids are grown, so somehow I was able to balance, all my career through that and be able to be there for my kids. I thought I was doing a pretty good job in that way, and so my whole goal is moderation. One of the things that I teach my clients is moderation. And, I always will say, look, we have to save for today or we have to enjoy today but save for tomorrow. Right. And so one of my, I guess you can call this a pet peeve. One of my pet peeves is when you're working with somebody in their field and they're the worst at it or they might look one of the worst at it. A good example is like a gymnastics coach and they can't do a somersault.
Right. They can't
They're
walk the
bringing my
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm bringing my kids to you, you better be able to do this with them. And so that was, that's really stuck with me for me as a financial advisor. I want to be the best financial advisor. I have to do what I do myself for me as well as I do it for everybody else. And so that takes me back to, that takes me back to that moderation, right? And so trying to be able to live today and yet save for tomorrow. And so you know, it was just really important for me to be able to have that time. But I think you were asking me more about energy. I don't know. I think I'm just naturally energetic. I mean, if somebody asks me how I am, I'm perfect. I try to say things I want to be and not necessarily always feeling in the moment, but I'm not going to succumb to, I'm not going to say I'm tired or don't feel great today or, something. I'm always going to proclaim and project those positive things. I have my declarations and I don't know if you can see, but I write in them and I have my little pep book and I'm really positive and feel good about declaring things that should be in order to become them, after a period of time, a day, a month, a year, or what have you. But it's really important that we have great self talk and that we are building ourselves up and that I don't know where all my energy comes from. I mean, I rarely really if I put 10, 12 hours in, I might feel like, yeah, it's time to go do something else. Or, sometimes I love, I might leave and I need to get a walk in and I'm always trying to figure out how to run or walk and managing the daylight. And so, but I always go back to work. So if I leave early, I might get it done and go back to work. I think honestly, Jen, the energy comes from I love what I do.
I was just gonna say you're living your passion and you have the freedom and flexibility to get your walk in and then work later, which I just
Mhm.
love. Yeah, I love it.
I'm thankful for that balance, that moderation, that ability to have flexibility in what I do because I think it's important that we stay healthy. I'm no good for my clients if I'm not healthy. My family if I'm not healthy. And I love to be able to go out and exercise and I love the sunshine and being outside. So I was telling my husband this the other day. I'm like, I am really particular. I'm really intentional about what I'm putting in my life. I mean, why would I put something in my life I didn't love? And then I'm balancing my relationships with friends and family. I'm in the outdoors, I'm on my boat, I'm walking, running, and I'm working. And so I guess going back to that path of when I took over for my mom and I decided to stay in finance, it was once I accepted that that's the door that God opened for me and that I knew I was good at it and I accepted it. It was like weight just came right off my shoulders. And ever since then I've rarely doubted myself. There was maybe one other time, working with that company that I had a setback, a small doubt, but if I hadn't already accepted that this is what I was supposed to do, I had to push through, right? We all have challenges. I pushed through that one and I'm still here today and doing even better than I was, but the energy comes from knowing I am doing what God has intended me to do. And I think
Oh,
we're in that space. It's perfect.
well, mic drop there. I don't think we can add one more thing to inspiring somebody who's listening today because that is just so inspiring. And I love your journey. And I love the fact that it wasn't perfect and that there were times you questioned it and there were times you had challenges and you had to switch, brokers or agencies or whatever, you call them in your financial world. And you just kept persevering. You didn't give up. And I think a lot of that comes from your positivity. And I love how you shared that you do the affirmations and try not to let that self talk get in the way because I've learned with entrepreneurship, it can be really lonely and we can easily start to succumb to the negative talk that spirals in our brains.
Mm.
So take me through. You are very passionate about our community here in Grand Rapids, and you said you bring events together. I know you do a couple different things. Don't you do something with seniors?
I do. I am an educational partner for Grand Rapids Savvy Seniors, and that
Okay.
is just a wonderful it's a free series, happens mostly the first Tuesday of every month, and it's at the Prince Center there at Calvin. And that is me. Like I said, I'm an educational partner, but it's really Laura Kelso from Kelso Homes that puts that on. And she has done a phenomenal job. I've been there from the beginning, but what she is able to provide in terms of resources and educational topics, I mean, I just wouldn't be anywhere else than that series on those first Tuesdays. And, again, these seniors have become friends. I'm not there. A lot of people are there to get business, obviously. I'm mostly there to just love on these seniors, to learn about these resources that I can share then in my client meetings and to just continue to pass that information on because these seniors come in. It might be their only event of the day, the week, the month. I see them bringing their friends and maybe getting lunch afterwards. So, but the information is incredible, and the series continues to expand and grow to let everybody know. And again, Laura's a business owner, so it's wonderful. And like you and I had said earlier, getting into business can be really easy, but staying in business is what can be really challenging. And she's another success story. So I'm glad to be a part of that series.
That's awesome. And you're right. Staying in business is what's challenging. And I love how your motto has been serving first. Tell me about Women and Wealth, because I know it's a monthly get together and it's geared towards women. And is it about helping them learn how to be better investors?
Yes. So really Women in Wealth started as it was an idea from a client years ago. I wanted to put together a Women in Wealth event. And she had, as I was talking to her, it was her birthday, and she was talking about how her friends get together once a month and they celebrate that group's birthdays, her particular friends, and they follow the alphabet and they go to a new restaurant every month. And so I'm like, I'm using that. I'm using it. And so we're on our third time through the alphabet. And so this month we're going to Matchbox Diner. I had to use D for diner. You get a little creative. These events, and I rarely have had to duplicate. That's been the beauty of it. There
Well,
are
yeah,
a
that's
lot
fun.
of restaurants in Grand Rapids. And so when these women come out, the whole goal for me was to be able to get women to stand up to the table or sit up to the table in finance, because this would be an area I find that most women would kind of pass off to their spouses because we have a lot on our plate. And I understand that. But then when we get to a period of time where emergencies occur, we're somehow single again, there's a lot of situations that can bring that. They're the ones that are left with not knowing what assets do we have and where do I find these passwords and, how to do certain things. I mean, basic things are easy, but they might not always know the values or how it's owned or where it's held. And there's a lot more women staying single right out of the gate these days. And so my whole goal was to try to make education fun, put it into a setting where women can come together every month. It's a drop in, 4:30 to 6:30. Come when you can, leave when you have to. come 1 month, come 2, skip a month, come back. A lot of times it depends on their work schedule and where the venue is and whether or not they can make it happen. But I wanted it to be unintimidating. No men, so that anybody is gonna get, "Oh, that's a silly question," or "Why'd you ask that?" I want it to be questions that women will bring, and maybe something came up in conversation, maybe employee benefits. I really want women to know and understand their employee benefits. Companies spend a lot of money in providing benefits to each of us. And sometimes we're not using them or maximizing them. And if we really dig in and want to know what they are, sometimes people don't even get their full match. Sometimes people don't understand there's a Roth, a tax free growth option in that 401k. So I will bring a topic every month and I try to share it. And it depends. Sometimes there's 4 people, sometimes there's a dozen of us, sometimes we've been up as 25 or so. But we really like the venue options. And so even though I said, what if we just do this in one place every month? Because then I can actually talk or share a topic, or we know we have room. So part of the charm is the venues as well and who can come every month. That's what it's really meant to be, because I really believe planning for women is different than planning for men and certainly different than planning for couples. And so my advice is going to be very different, very tailored to each individual. But then, if you're a female, things are going to be a little bit different. I don't want to take away from the female role in any way, but I never want one of my clients stranded in some old car, so if it means I have to break a rule and we are willing to take a look at a lease, it might be that that person just needs to have something reliable, it's suitable, it's stable, and I'm okay with that. We're going to make that work. We're going to figure it out, because I know we have cell phones today. We can call anybody, but at the same time, I think we've really lacked trust in our communities a lot of times as well. And I need my clients safe.
Oh, I love your holistic approach to taking care of your clients. So, is Women in Wealth open to anyone or is it just for your current clients?
Nope, it's open to anybody. I do try to put it on Facebook, so you can find the event on Facebook every month as well.
And I will link, you have a Facebook event for that, correct? That's
It
ongoing?
it's on my page. Yep, I put it
Okay.
on there every month.
Okay. I will make sure I link that in the show notes. So, Sherry, thank you so much for just sharing your story, your testament, your faith. It really is very powerful. You have a wonderful story that's very heartwarming and very inspiring because I know there's a lot of us out there that are building businesses. Some might feel like, "Oh, is this where you want me today, God? What am I doing?" And I just hope they listen to your words and continue to persevere because I believe that, the statistics for small business ownership can be kind of dire. Only 1 out of 2 make it to 5 years. I don't believe they fail. I believe they quit. And I believe they quit because of a belief system or they don't have the right support or the right people. And that's why I love bringing guests like you on to help fill their bucket and keep them moving. So, thank you so much for being here today and I will share all the links to get a hold of Sherry in the show notes.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Wow, I don't know about you, but there were so many key takeaways from Sherry's story. I was so inspired. Saturated market, standing out by serving first. Do the extra, even when no one's watching. Purpose over pressure. I love how when the road forked for her, she just prayed about it, then followed the door that actually opened. And I also love her moderation is a strategy. A lot of times we talk about burnout, we talk about boundaries, and for her, it's moderation. And then mindset matters. Speak declarations, protect your self talk. Borrow Sherry's energy until it becomes your own. So if you're local, check out Sherry's monthly Women in Wealth cocktails and the Grand Rapids Happy Seniors. The links are in the show notes below. I'm Jennifer Kok, and this is Main Street Success Stories. Remember, most businesses don't fail, they quit. Stay in the game, serve boldly, and I'll see you next time. Oh, hey, one more thing before we wrap up. If you're a woman entrepreneur who's building a business and a family at the same time, I want you to know you don't have to do it all alone, and you don't have to stay stuck in survival mode. Every day, I help women like you step off the hamster wheel and finally create the kind of business they dreamed of, one that actually pays them and helps their family finances. The result, a profitable, sustainable business that pays you well, gives you back the freedom you've been craving. If you're ready to take the next step, I'd love to invite you into my free webinar, 3 Keys to Build a Profitable Business. It's filled with simple, proven strategies that you can start using right away. Save your seat in the link below.